What's up, Taiwan? I'm Eric Gao with the latest news from here in Taipei. A key plan to help Taiwan's businesses deal with U.S. tariffs has been delayed. That's as the U.S. and China send mixed signals about electronics and chip levies. But as the tariff war continues, Taiwan's semiconductor industry may be getting some small benefits. Chris Gorn reports.
The details of Taiwan's tariff support plan for local businesses are on hold as Taipei tries to navigate Washington's ever-changing policies. Premier Zhuo Rongtai saying the final announcement of the nearly $3 billion plan has been pushed back a week. On Friday, the U.S. announced tariff exemptions on electronics like smartphones and computers, devices critical to Taiwan's export economy. But U.S. President Donald Trump now says there were no exceptions, calling it fake news, and announcing tariff investigations. The U.S.'s Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick tried to clarify the policy, saying specific tariffs for each product will be announced later, alongside special tariffs on semiconductors.
So all those products are going to come under semiconductors, and they're going to have a special focused type of tariff to make sure that those products get reassured.
Trump adding that the semiconductor tariffs are coming soon.
But the tariffs will be in place in the not distant future because, as you know, like we did with steel, like we did with automobiles, like we did with aluminum, which are now fully on, we'll be doing that with semiconductors, with chips. I'm going to be announcing it over the next week.
As Taiwan braces for U.S. tariffs, it may be getting an unexpected lift from China. Beijing has implemented tariffs of more than 100% on U.S. products. But its new rules on chips say product origin depends on where the silicon is made. That means chips from U.S. companies like NVIDIA and AMD will dodge China's tariffs.
就算在美国设计，但是在台湾做那个晶圆制造，它是会视为是台湾的那个半导体制造，或者 made in Taiwan。所以换句话讲，就是对于台湾而言，在晶圆制造这一方面的话，可能有相当大的一个优势。
It's still unclear how tariff chaos will ultimately impact Taiwan's economy. But for the moment, the uncertainty may offer it a quiet edge. Luffy Lee and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
Another person working closely with Taiwan's top leadership has been accused of spying for China. It's the latest in a string of espionage cases plaguing the ruling Democratic Progressive Party. Reese Ayers is live from our newsroom with more details on this. Reese, who is this latest person to be caught up in this scandal?
Well, he's a man who worked with Taiwan's former foreign minister, Joseph Wu. Joseph Wu is now the Secretary General of the National Security Council. So we're talking about high-ranking politicians here. The man in question, surnamed He, he's since been dispelled from the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, and he's being held incommunicado, and he's suspected of gathering and leaking information about top Taiwanese officials back to Beijing. Now, Joseph Wu's office has responded to the case, saying that they generally don't comment on specific or individual cases, but that the man in question has already left the Foreign Ministry as of last year. Going on to say that they support severe punishment for anybody who goes against the national interest in that way, and that they support the judicial system in however they like to handle this case. But there's flack coming from the opposition lawmakers who are berating the DPP for having so many apparent breaches in security. The Taiwan People's Party chair, Huang Guochang, saying that Joseph Wu should step down, even going as far to insinuate that under Wu's watch as foreign minister, Taiwan lost 8 of its official diplomatic allies, and Huang Guochang is insinuating that these breaches that happened under Wu's watch could be part of why that happened. Some in the ruling DPP are saying, however, that the reveal of these espionage cases is actually showing that they are the party who are standing up to China and the ones that China are worried about. As one DPP lawmaker said, you spy on your enemies, but not your friends.
So, Reese, how's the DPP responding to all of this? How's it going to address this growing number of espionage cases from within the party?
Well, it's getting pretty difficult to ignore now. It's at least the fifth case involving an aide or an advisor to a top official, including previously an advisor to the president, Lai Ching-te himself. Some criticism is being directed at the fact that this man, He, after he had his kind of initial onboarding security check, that there were no follow-up background checks on him throughout his time working at the ministry. This, alongside the mounting number of cases, has pushed the DPP to review several amendments regarding national security, to, quote, weed out Chinese Communist Party middlemen. And one of those amendments or changes could put greater scrutiny on lawmakers who travel to China. But in terms of the impact that this is having on kind of the public opinion surrounding this issue, we're going to have to wait and see.
Thanks for that explanation, Reese. That was Reese Ayers reporting live from Taipei. Now, Taiwan's military says having enough attack drones and a strong, independent supply chain is essential to the country's defense plan. The local news outlet, the Liberty Times, has cited military sources as saying they plan to leverage drones to create what U.S. officials have described as a hellscape in the Taiwan Strait. This would involve using large numbers of uncrewed systems to deter a Chinese invasion. Taiwan says it plans to greatly increase mass production of two types of domestically made attack drones. One is the Jianxiang, a loitering munition with a range of over 1,000 kilometers. The other is a short-range loitering munition designed to circle the battlefield before striking its target. Now, for more on this so-called drone hellscape and how Taiwan is boosting its drone strategy, Jaime Ocon spoke to Kelly Greco, security analyst at the Stimson Center based in Washington, D.C.
We're seeing now this pretty big push from Taiwan to develop drones and produce these systems at a pretty large scale. What does that tell you about how Taiwan views its defense strategy?
It tells me two things, really. One is that Taiwan is paying attention to lessons of the Ukraine war and realizing that mass, meaning superior numbers, is really critical on the modern battlefield. And so the idea of being able to mass produce these is exactly right in terms of where the character of war is going. The other thing it tells me is that the United States and Taiwan are both coming closer to being on the same page about what a future fight could potentially look like. Because the United States is talking about a hellscape as a way to try to deter China and defend in a contingency. And it looks like Taiwan is slowly moving more in that direction as well, recognizing that at least for an early part of a fight, that's going to be a critical part of it.
So far, we've seen a lot of work on drones that operate in the air, but when it comes to this hellscape strategy that many people are talking about, what does that mean for Taiwan? Does this mean that we need different kinds of drones or unmanned systems?
This is the right idea in that we need different types of drones. They do different things, and range just becomes really important. So the longer range ones would allow potentially to threaten to destroy a target much further away from Taiwan's soil itself. So this could be, say, ships that are leaving a harbor, for example, to try to disrupt operations before they really get underway. And really, when you look at the hellscape concept, it is multi-domain. So it is about, yes, you want to have air-based drones that are operating in the air that create all these kinds of problems for an adversary, but you'd want to have surface drones and also subsurface drones. And so it's really that whole combination. You imagine if you were facing that kind of threat environment, how complex it is about knowing where to defend, where to look for the adversary, and anything that adds to that complexity makes operations really, really difficult for anyone that's going to try to dare to go on offense. And that's exactly the idea here with hellscape.
So now that Taiwan is mass producing these kinds of systems at a large scale, what's the next step for the military to improve on this drone strategy?
I would say that if you're looking about what are the things that can be done in the short term that would actually have really large payoffs in terms of strengthening deterrence and defense, those are the things that I would focus on. And I think some of that would be about things at the lower end that can actually really complicate an adversary's ability to operate. especially things that you could very quickly get into production and then be able to scale up rapidly. So things that are at the higher end, it's going to take longer to be able to develop those and then scale them up. So I would be focusing on sort of the low to medium end to really try to create a robust deterrent in defense.
That was Kelly Greco, security analyst at the Stimson Center. The first hearing of former South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol's criminal trial is underway in Seoul. Yoon faces charges that his declaration of martial law last December amounted to an insurrection. That's punishable by life imprisonment or the death penalty, though South Korea has not executed anyone in decades. Yoon has denied all charges. South Korea's Constitutional Court removed Yoon from office earlier this month. It ruled that his actions were a serious violation of his powers and a threat to democracy. Hong Kong's last remaining major opposition party has taken a key step towards disbanding. It's been facing increasing pressure ever since China imposed a controversial national security law on the city. Rosie Greninger reports.
A familiar route for Emily Lau, travelling to Hong Kong's Stanley Prison, a trip the former Democratic Party chair often makes to see ex-colleagues now behind bars. Many of her party's members, including former chair Albert Ho, were jailed on national security charges in 2020 after Beijing imposed sweeping laws.
And he's been there, he's been locked up for over 1,000 days. So I feel very, very sorry for Albert. And he's a very, very patriotic person. He knows China inside out. He's been to Diaoyutai 4 times. And look at his fate.
The Democratic Party was born in 1994, 3 years before Britain handed Hong Kong back to Chinese rule. Their mission, to hold leaders accountable to promises under the one country, two systems model, for Hong Kong to retain a high degree of autonomy and eventually hold free and fair elections for its top leader. The party led pro-democracy movements for decades, but in 2019, China moved to silence dissent in the city amid widespread protests, restricting elections and imposing media censorship. It escalated in 2020 when Beijing imposed a national security law used to jail 4 Democratic Party ex-lawmakers, making it nearly impossible for the party to survive. And its members are now voting to disband.
Today, our members passed this resolution of allowing the Central Committee to proceed with the dissolution follow-ups with vast majority vote.
The preliminary vote saw 90% of members present electing to allow its leaders to dissolve the party. But this is not the final step.
In the coming few months, I hope, there will be another general meeting that we actually will get that motion into debate and vote.
As the party decides its next steps, Lau has not given up on its mission, saying she's open to dialogue with Beijing.
The game is not over. I will carry on, and I hope Hong Kong people will carry on. But of course, before the might of the Communist Party, it's not easy.
Under Chinese rule, many smaller pro-democracy parties and civic groups have closed. And now with the city's largest opposition party taking key steps towards disbanding, Lau just hopes those imprisoned pro-democracy leaders know they will not be forgotten. Eason Pan and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
At least 34 people are dead and over 100 wounded after a Russian missile strike on the Ukrainian city of Sumy. It's the deadliest attack by Russia so far this year.
Мы в центре города живем. Тут военная база нет, легитимный военный чел нет. Просто геноцид. Геноцид.
The attack happened while people were out celebrating Palm Sunday. 2 missiles hit the city center near the State University and the Congress Center, leaving bodies scattered in the streets. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is urging world leaders to speak out against the strike. The U.S. is trying to negotiate a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. And thanks for joining us here on What's Up Taiwan. Visit our website to see more of our news reports and other programs. And finally, we take you to Osaka, where Expo 2025 just opened. I'm Eric Gao. We'll see you next time.